Welcome to Heritage Food Stories, Episode 4, Why Suriname is one of the most unique countries in South America. Have you ever told someone where you're from and watched their face go completely blank? My family is from Suriname, a small Dutch-speaking country on the northeastern coast of South America, and even other South Americans often ask, where is that? I'm your host, Chef Murray, chef, food historian, culinary storyteller, and a lifelong passion for global cuisines, culinary history, and the stories behind the food we eat. So let's get into it. Suriname isn't just a country most people can't place on a map. It's one of the most culturally diverse nations in the world, where mosques and synagogues stand side by side. African traditions remain intact in the Amazon rainforest, and the food tells a global story of survival, migration, and resilience. Today, we're diving into Suriname, South America's Dutch gem, its people, its history, and why it might just be the most underrated destination you've never heard of. Have you heard of Suriname? No worries if you haven't. You're definitely not alone. For years, this vibrant country on the northeastern coast of South America has flown under the radar for most travelers, history buffs, and food lovers alike. Yet today, this small Dutch-speaking country on the northeastern coast of South America is quietly gaining attention. Suriname has been consistently featured on top places to visit lists in travel magazines over the last several years, praised for its untouched rainforests, cultural diversity, and UNESCO-listed capital city. Still, despite this growing recognition, most people know very little about this fascinating country, and that's exactly why Suriname remains one of South America's best-kept secrets. As someone who grew up between cultures, I came to realize that Suriname's story, its people, food, languages, and history is exactly the kind of experience people are searching for when they look up travel inspiration, multicultural destinations, and authentic, off-the-beaten-path places to visit. Maybe one of the reasons I've always been drawn to global cultures and cuisines is because my own family comes from one of the most culturally diverse countries on the planet. Suriname is a multicultural society shaped by centuries of migration, colonization, resistance, and survival. The population includes people of African, East Indian, Indonesian, Chinese, European, and Indigenous Amerindian descent, all living side by side in a country smaller than most U.S. states. My own family reflects this diversity. Within just 2 generations, we represent African, Indian, Indonesian, and Chinese heritage. And in Suriname, this isn't unusual at all. Multicultural families are incredibly common, making Suriname a rare example of cultural coexistence in the Americas. According to the 2012 Suriname census, the population is made up of 27.4% East Indian, 21.7% African, 15.7% Creole, which are mixed African and European, 13.7% Indonesian, 13.4% multi-ethnic, 3.8% Indigenous Amerindian, 1.5% Chinese, 7.6% other. The diversity is so central to Surinamese identity that it's immortalized in music. In the song Born in Suriname by Carlos Linka, he sings, Paramaribo, mosque and synagogue are standing side by side. Many religions, different races, many colors, different faces. They represent the Suriname identity. And that lyric isn't poetic exaggeration, it's literal. In Paramaribo, the Neve Shalom Synagogue and the Keizerstraat Mosque truly do stand next to each other, symbolizing Suriname's deep tradition of religious tolerance. So how did this small country, just 64,070 square miles, with a population of around 633,000, become one of the most diverse nations in the world? Well, here's a brief history of Suriname. Before European contact, the land was inhabited by the indigenous Suriname people, from whom Suriname is named, followed by the Arawak and Carib Kalinago tribes. In 1498, Christopher Columbus sighted Suriname's shores, but for over 150 years, European powers failed to establish lasting settlements due to fierce resistance from indigenous communities. The first successful settlement came in 1651 under British control, but in 1667, Suriname was traded to the Dutch in exchange for New Amsterdam, present-day New York City. With few exceptions, Suriname remained under Dutch rule until its independence in 1975. Under colonial rule, enslaved Africans were forced to work on plantations producing sugar, coffee, cacao, indigo, and timber, making Suriname a vital part of the Dutch colonial economy. Chinese and Portuguese were the first indentured servants to start arriving in 1853. After the abolition of slavery in 1863, the Dutch brought in indentured laborers from China, India, and Indonesia, then still a Dutch colony, forever shaping the cultural and culinary landscape of the country. With the end of enslaved workers, the Dutch could no longer keep up production and lost its relevance as a plantation economy. Mining replaced the plantations. Talks of autonomy began in 1948, and in 1975 there was a peaceful transition of power as Suriname became independent on November 25, 1975. Today, the diversity of Suriname is represented in cultural holidays like Ketikoti, Broken Chains, celebrating Emancipation Day, which abolished slavery in the Dutch colonies on July 1st, Maroon's Day on October 10th, and Prawas Din, Indian Arrival Day on June 5th, 1873. We can't talk about Suriname history and skip over the Maroons. The Maroons of Suriname preserved African heritage in the Americas. 90% of Suriname is actually the Amazon rainforest, where tribal communities of Indigenous and Maroons live. The remaining 10% of the country is where most of the population lives along the coastal areas. Enslaved people who were able to escape the brutal conditions of slavery formed their own communities in the inland areas of Suriname. Even today, this culture remains intact and is the best example of preserved African heritage and cultural survival in the Americas. There are 6 tribes that live along different rivers in the Amazon, preserving their language, religion, and culture. Now let's get to my favorite part, the cuisine of Suriname, a global fusion on one plate. Just like its people, Surinamese cuisine is a global fusion shaped by Africa, India, Indonesia, China, the Netherlands, and indigenous traditions. Some iconic dishes include bindakas soup, peanut butter soup with tom tom, which is essentially plantain fufu, African in origin, bakabana, these amazing sweet plantain fritters, which are Indonesian influence, chow mein, stir-fried noodles, Chinese influence, oliebollen, traditional Dutch donuts eaten on New Year's Eve for good luck. Those come from our Dutch colonizers. And of course, there's always gonna be curry and roti, which are Indian influence. Surinamese food tells the story of migration, survival, and cultural blending, all on one plate. You can explore Surinamese recipes on my website linked above. And make sure you're following so you don't miss upcoming Surinamese dishes I'll be sharing. So, is Suriname on your bucket list? Tell me, is it being added to your travel list this year? What excites you most? Exploring Paramaribo, the UNESCO World Heritage Capital? Visiting Indigenous and Maroon communities in the Amazon rainforest? Experiencing how so many cultures, religions, and ethnicities coexist in one country? If you love culture, history, food, and off-the-beaten-path travel, Suriname might just be the place you didn't know you were looking for. Thanks for tuning in. You can explore over 1,000 recipes from around the world on my website, globalkitchentravels.com, linked in the show notes. Whether you're cooking tonight or just curious, there's something there for you. I'm Chef Mireille. See you next time.